Welcome to the Startup Grind.
So get up on your feet for me and welcome to the stage, Sharon Lechter. Yeah, absolutely. Got you a water bottle there too. Hello. All right.
Can you hear me? Oh, there you are.
There we are.
Whoa.
Very good. All right, so in typical Startup Grind fashion, we like to start getting to know the person behind the magic before we go into all the business stuff. So let's start with, where are you from, where did you grow up, and what kind of a family did you grow up in?
Well, I was born in San Diego. I was a Navy brat, so we didn't live there very long, but I still love going back because I think I'm connected there. But I grew up in Florida. I graduated from high school the year that Disney World opened. So,
wow, that's a good note. I like that.
My degree from Florida State University, and moved to Atlanta to start my career with Coopers & Lybrand. So I've been a CPA for more years than I care to admit. And at the ripe old age of 26, when we know everything, I decided that if I was going to work that hard, I was going to work that hard for myself. So I left and have been building companies ever since. My family life, my dad was a career Navy. He had a third grade education, totally self-taught, ended up running the engineering school for the Navy. My mom had a high school graduation certificate, and she became a beautician in a beauty salon. So their goal was to see their daughters get college education. So I was the first generation to get a college degree. And our home was Ozzie and Harriet. I can't complain. I had a wonderful, wonderful upbringing, and always knew that my parents were entrepreneurs among themselves. They had orange groves and rental properties and a car lot, and so I grew up in that environment. So went on to, those of you, I think most of you are young enough to probably have remembered reading books that had sound strips down the side, where you touch the button and it makes noise. I started that industry in the late 80s with the inventor and grew that around the world. And then my husband and I, who's in the front row, Michael Lechter, my best friend for 35 years, moved to Arizona in '91. And a few years later, well, the next year, our son went to ASU and got into credit card debt, which was a major issue. And that's when I really dedicated the rest of my career to financial literacy and financial education. And Rich Dad, Poor Dad came a few years later. So I think you'll be talking about that later, right?
Yeah, for sure. So when you were young, was there any kind of what I want to be when I grow up? Have you always been a numbers girl, or did you have any younger ambitions that from back then?
I really wanted to be a fourth grade math teacher. I can't figure out why, but I think it's because I liked my fourth grade math teacher.
That's sweet.
But my 8th grade English teacher told me that I was going to be a writer, and I went, ha ha. I went off to college, and actually I was going to be a genetic biologist until I realized I was going to have to stay in school for 8 to 10 years. And so I decided, nope, I want something that gets me out of here quicker, and that's why I went into accounting. And so I graduated with my accounting degree.
Very
I was
good.
always kind of in the numbers, but also always loved to write.
Okay. So I think everybody's familiar with Rich Dad, Poor Dad and a little bit about that story. But tell us kind of a couple of your favorite memories from those years. You both co-authored the book and ran the company for many, many years as the CEO. So just give us a couple of the highlights from what stood out to you during those years.
Well, to relate to all of you, we really bootstrapped Rich Dad. We ran it for the first 3 years out of our home. And we would challenge ourselves when we needed to buy a copy machine. Instead of just writing the check for it, we would challenge ourselves to find a new way to sell product to raise more money to buy the copy machine. And so we were blessed with success. It was before we went with a major publisher, it was in 3 years after we released the book in 1997 that we hit the New York Times bestseller list on our own. And we still had publishing companies that wouldn't touch us because they didn't think we were big enough. Wow. And so we'd already sold 1 million books, and we hit the New York Times bestseller list, and we got the call from Oprah. And all of you know what happened back then when you were on Oprah's show related to a book, so it really helped explode the company. But I think from a standpoint of the most incredible moment in my tenure at Rich Dad was actually at 9/11. My husband and I were in Beijing when the towers were attacked, and so we had I was supposed to speak at the university, but because the whole world stood still for that day, Mike and I were taking a walk, and we were in an outdoor shopping center, and these young girls come running up to you and say, "Please, please, may we practice our English on you?" And we said, "Of course, yes." They were so cute. And they started talking in their English about the fact that they were studying this book in school, and the book was called Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Oh, wow.
And so I had this big smile on my face, and my husband says, "Do you have the book with you?" And they pulled it, they said, yes, they went and pulled it out of their backpack, and they brought it. And my husband turned it over and pointed to the picture on the back of the book. And there must have been 20 little Chinese girls just screaming and jumping up and down. And of course, we took lots of pictures. But to have the impact of seeing something that you've done literally being taught in schools in China was an incredible moment. And I'll cherish that moment.
Wow, yeah, that's really cool. So where do you think your passion for financial literacy came from?
It came from when my son went to ASU and came home at Christmas, and he was $2,500 in credit card debt. I was pretty angry with him, but I was more angry with myself because I had taught him about money. I hadn't taught, he was with me when I used my credit cards, but I guess he wasn't with me when I paid them off every month. And so he had gotten himself in debt. We wouldn't bail him out. And it's probably the best decision we ever made in parenting. And it took him 7 years to get out of debt and 7 years to repair his credit. But he's as passionate as I am about teaching people about financial literacy. Sure. But I think it's really important. At that time, it made me understand and realize how little we teach people about money and how devastating getting into debt can be. I mean, when it comes to money, you're either a master of your money or a slave to it. There's not much in between. You either control your life and use money to live your life, or you are out of control and money controls and dictates your life. And so it was my goal and my passion to make sure that young people get the tools they need to succeed.
Very nice. And that's the past, since you've completed your time with Rich Dad, you've been doing a lot of that type of thing through your own company. So tell us a little bit about a couple of the highlights from the most recent years, what you've been working on.
Well, I grew the Rich Dad company. I owned it with with my partner for 10 years, and then in 2007 we were really no longer aligned, and I was no longer feeling good about the company and where it was headed for my personal mission. And so I made the decision in the height of our success. It's like, you're crazy, Sharon, but I just wasn't comfortable being there. I made the decision to leave. And sometimes you have to close one door for another door to open. And it was an incredible time in my life because it was very contentious with my partner. And at the same time, I got a call in September of that year from President Bush asking me to be on the first President's Advisory Council for Financial Literacy. So I served both President Bush and President Obama, and that opportunity would not have presented itself had I still been at Rich Dad. So each and every one of you, sometimes you have to close one door for other doors of opportunity to open. And just a few months later, I got the phone call from Don Green, who's the CEO of the Napoleon Hill Foundation. How many of you are familiar with the book Think and Grow Rich? May I see? Wonderful. Well, if those of you that are not, you see? I highly recommend you put it on your reading list. It came out in 1937, but it really is the foundational work of success. And most of today's gurus' books draw their wealth from that book. Napoleon Hill wrote about the law of attraction well before The Secret. He wrote about he was the one who created the concept, the mastermind, getting a group of people together and having exponential positive results. He talked about pay yourself first. And so his foundational work really helped turn the country around after the Great Depression. And when we had our economic downturn, which I'm sure many of you felt in 2007, 2008, the foundation realized that a lot of young people your age didn't know who Napoleon Hill was. And so they reached out to me and asked me to help them reinvigorate the Napoleon Hill messages. So I've now completed 3 books with the Napoleon Hill Foundation. I have a couple more in process. But that was a huge honor. I read Think and Grow Rich when I was 19. And so it kind of came full circle. And again, I would never have gotten that phone call had I still been at Rich Dad. So sometimes you have to stand up and take a stand for what's right for you and what's right for what you stand for. And I've never looked back and continued to work in the field of financial literacy. That same year, in 2009, I was asked by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants. So I hadn't been a practicing CPA since I was 26, but I've always kept that association. So I teach people, particularly entrepreneurs, the power of association. Meetings like this, groups like this are so important in finding the resources and the support you need to grow. And they came to me and said, Sharon, we want you to represent your profession. And so I am a national and international spokesperson on the subject of financial education and financial literacy for the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants.
Great.
So I continue to work in that field.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that I particularly like is that you really do passionately believe and help people understand that as an entrepreneur, you don't have to go it alone, that there are a lot of support resources around you, from masterminds to advisors to a whole wealth of partnership opportunities. But when it comes to masterminds or advisors particularly, what do you see there? How do you see that pairing? How would you help an entrepreneur understand why that's so important?
How many of you have a weakness? Let me see. Well, there's a few people that are perfect. That's really good. That's good. And yes, I'm stealing your line, Mike. And we all have our strengths and we have our weaknesses. And so it's really important to recognize what your weaknesses are and make sure you have someone on your team who has that as a strength. As we, I sit here and I have, my husband is in the front row, but he's my primo advisor because of his brilliance in licensing, and he's an intellectual property attorney. So we work on all our companies together. And next to him is Wendy Stevens, who has been in my life for a very short time, but her expertise in LinkedIn funnels and online marketing and strategy is incredible. And so to be able to bring her onto my team and be able to create and get my message to more people more quickly in a true and in a very sincere way has been an incredible gift to me. So each and every one of you, what happens is we go through school and you're on your own. You get grades, and so you have to perform by yourself. But when you get out in the real world, it's teams that work. Business is a team sport. And it also helps when you get low, your partner may be on a high and be able to get you back to where you need to be. And that's the number one issue I find for entrepreneurs is they've had a peer relationship going through school. They may have a corporate environment for a while where they, again, are with peers. And they go, I'm going to build my own ladder. They go out and they build their own company. But all of a sudden it starts getting lonely because it's just you. You may have employees, but they're looking to you for the decisions. And that's why it's so important to have these kinds of peer groups, networking, and having the right advisors there to support you that can help you avoid the pitfalls. Now, you want to make sure your advisors have been where you want to go and that they can successfully help you get there more quickly with fewer bumps and bruises.
Well put. So one of the things that I thought was interesting is that a lot of times you can almost predict the revenue of a company based on the number of employees within a band because there's a ratio there. But with what you did with Rich Dad, Poor Dad, you guys had a pretty impressive ratio. I think you said, what, 50 million and 17 employees? Somewhere around there? So that's pretty impressive to pull off that kind of sales with that few people. You have some tips in that area, some strategies that you used to grow a business, quote, using other people's money without giving up equity. So leveraging relationships. And so tell us your secrets, my dear.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and I actually I'll give you a couple of books that you can put into your raffle. My husband wrote the book called Other People's Money, and I have a copy here. We'll add that to the group. But throughout my companies, when we built the talking book industry, we had this new technology, and we said, well, how do we get people to buy it? And they don't know us, they're gonna look at it, what are we gonna do? So we went and we partnered through a license with Disney, Warner Brothers, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And that is what exploded our company because we had that verification by having the brand. People trusted the brand, therefore they would try the product. And we paid licensing to those companies in order to use their names and their characters. And so as we started building Rich Dad, I said, instead of us paying royalties, I'd rather be the one getting the royalties. And so what we did is we focused very, very strongly on building the Rich Dad brand and building it into the powerhouse that it started, and having a consistent look, a consistent feel, and then people were coming to us wanting to license our products. And so we were able to build globally through licensing that we would never have been able to do it under our own power without hundreds of employees. And then when we wanted to go into a new field of expertise, instead of building the bricks and mortar and finding people and training people, when we wanted to do coaching, I went out to find the greatest coaching model I could find with the highest level of quality control. And I partnered with them and said, I want you to do what you do well, but with my content. And so we continued to expand exponentially. And the year we had 40 million in sales, that really only represented a 10% of what the gross sales were. But because we were being compensated by royalties, we had retail impact of 400 million. And so the issue is, what are you doing in your company where you're working so hard to get something done where you could go outside to somebody else's company who's doing what you need to have done already, and they're experts at it, and partner with them to have them fulfill that for you, and you end up getting maybe 10% where you're getting the checks and they're doing the work. It's a formula I like. You do the work initially, and then you allow them to work on it, grow it, and build it with quality control, and you get the checks. It's a beautiful formula. I say there's really two sexy words. It's called royalties and cash flow. And with those two things on your side, you're in good shape.
You just made numbers sexy. That's impressive. I like it. So if I was an entrepreneur and I was considering this idea of licensing, what would be some of the things I should take into consideration? What's a best practice, or what getting started, or in the way that I set it up or structure it? What tips do you have for people that would be looking to set something up?
Now you're going to make me nervous because I'm going to talk about licensing in front of my expert husband. So
that's okay.
First you have to have something that people want. Good first step. And you need to protect it. And so you need to make sure that your ownership is secure and solid. And then look at your business, because licensing is not just a single thing. You can license in territories. So maybe your operations are here and you have no plans to ever go to Asia, but you have somebody in Asia that wants to do what you do. So you license them the ability to do that geographically. Or maybe it's in different languages. Maybe you've created a dynamite product, but it's very needed in the Hispanic market, and you don't have those resources, you don't have those connections, but you can find someone else who does. Then you're limiting in a distribution channel as to what they do. My husband and I own part of an automotive company, and so what they create a very, very interesting new technique and technology in alternators. When we're licensing that, we're licensing government use in certain vehicles. We might license buses, so we can change the channel based on what our unique needs are and what their expertise is, because you don't want to give a bus company the license to limos if they don't have any limos. And so it's very important that you look at what it is you're selling and what you're offering, and make sure it's the sweet spot for the company that's coming to you to license.
That makes sense, because their execution determines your royalty, your payback.
If you give them the rights, you may not be able to do it yourself.
Right. You can't give it to a limo company that could have knocked it out of the park. Okay. And with so many relationships in place, obviously intellectual property is of utmost importance. And I think sometimes as entrepreneurs, like I come from the marketing world a lot, and to explain to entrepreneurs what branding is and why it's so important just seems so abstract out there at the beginning, you know? I think intellectual property is kind of similar in that at the beginning, people don't really understand what it means or why they need to protect it or what kind of pitfalls could ensue if they don't take certain steps. So again, starting kind of in layman's terms, what would you say is a way to think about intellectual property from the beginning and some preliminary steps and kind of the importance of them?
Well, first of all, you all already have intellectual property. You may not have it identified, but you already have it. Your customer lists are intellectual property. The way your website looks and feels is intellectual property. The issue is whether anybody wants to pay for it. And so you want to identify your intellectual property, you want to make sure you protect it, and then you want to leverage it. And you leverage that through licensing or other methods. And so it's very important to understand that intellectual property, and some of the stats, I'm going to probably be off a little bit, but in the 60s, 70% of the valuation of Fortune 500, is it 70%, Mike? 80% of the valuation of Fortune 500 companies were bricks and mortar. 20% intangible. And today, it's inverse. 80% intangible rights, intellectual property, software, all of those things that are creating incredible value. Just think of Google and Microsoft. And so what are you creating that you need to protect? Because what happens is when you create it, it may not have hard costs. And so what happens is you have these intangible assets that don't show up on your balance sheet like you want them to. And that's when you sell a company. Have you all heard of the term goodwill? Well, that goodwill is what you're getting paid for all these intangible assets partially, and your good reputation, because your reputation becomes intellectual property as well. That's why it's very important to make sure you keep an eye on your online reputation and do those customer satisfaction surveys, so that you know what your customers think of you, so you can continue moving in the direction to create more and more intellectual property.
Very good. And so would you say, help people understand a little bit about what it means to take steps to protect that?
Certainly. Call Michael Lechter. The number is 480-607-1940. There are different mechanisms for protecting intellectual property. Trade secret is you just keep it secret. It's, Coca-Cola did it right. Most of us don't. Also understanding that you can use a blend of intellectual property tools. We've all heard of trademarks. That identifies the source of the goods. Copyrights. You write something, it's copyrighted. You can file a formal copyright and to use my husband's term, I feel like I'm like, this is his mouth, his words coming out of my mouth. The copyright protects the expression of the idea, but not the idea itself. And then there's patents, and patents can be utility patents or design patents. And you want to use a blend of all of them. Mike calls it the belt and suspenders. And at Rich Dad, we had over 600 trademarks. We had copyrights, of course, on all of our products. We had patents on our board game cash flow. And so it's being able to provide that arsenal of protection for intellectual property is what allowed us to grow so exponentially around the world. And you can go to uspto.gov. If you have an idea, you can see if anybody's already trademarked it, and you can see, you can kind of do your own patent search, but we really recommend that you do go to an attorney because they can help save you so many headaches. And there's so many things that you can do to prevent yourself. If you have an idea and you want to patent it, and you create a prototype and you start selling it, you are starting a problem for yourself in being able to file a patent. And I'm going to get myself into trouble if I start giving you any more detail.
Yeah,
because
it's okay.
I've got the eagle eye on me. So the issue is making sure you find the right patent attorney that can help you add value. Patent attorneys are good guy attorneys because they add value to your companies. They create value.
Yeah. Interestingly, there's after they get advice from their attorney, there is a local startup called Tracklight that actually helps people with a software tool to be able to document things as they need to be able to be successful in protecting their intellectual property. So it's kind of cool. It's Arizona homegrown. So, okay, very good. We'll take you off the intellectual property hot seat for now, okay? So back to...
I love intellectual property. It's not a hot seat. I love it.
Very good. So back to you yourself. Where do you see yourself in 10 years?
Hopefully on a beach somewhere. 10 years. Oh my goodness. I am in the middle of several big initiatives. One is I'm trying to get I'm not going to say trying. I teach people don't use the word try. I am in the midst of working with Matt Salmon on a federal bill that will require financial education for anyone getting a federal spec student loan. So if we're going to give them money, let's give them some education, because I believe that's one of the next big bubbles in our economy that's going to burst and cause a lot of problems. And so that's a huge initiative for me.
Nice.
And I also am really working in empowering women globally. So.
Oh, very good. Anything else you want to share with our entrepreneurs tonight?
Well, I think entrepreneurs are fabulous people, and I think when I was 26, the decision that made me leave Coopers and Lybrand was that I sat on my bed I had this great offer, and I did my pros and my cons, and they were equal, and I could argue both sides, but my hand kind of took over and wrote across the top of the page, why not? And that's really the concept that entrepreneurs have. Why not? Why not try something different? Why not take the road less traveled? Why not? Now, if the answer is it's illegal, that's a good reason. Why not? But why not go out there and make a difference? If everybody's going left, go right. Find something new, something that you can solve. And the most successful businesses do one of two things: solve a problem or serve a need. And we certainly have enough problems in the world today that there's a lot of opportunities for new businesses. And, again, my husband talking through me, when you solve that problem or you serve that need, you're creating intellectual property. So identify it and protect it.
Very good. All right, so before we're done here, we have a little game that we like to play at the end of the interview, and it's called 21 Questions Rapid Fire. So
okay.
These are quick and easy. You can just tell us your perspective on the following, and we'll go from there. First one, sushi or tacos?
Sushi.
Coke or Pepsi?
Coke.
Mornings or nights?
Nights.
Favorite book? Might be an unfair question here.
Think and Grow Rich.
All
Actually,
right.
the Bible.
Okay, well, there you go. Favorite app?
Stocks, stock market. Let's see, Spider, Solitaire, Uber.
All right.
Uber probably is right up there.
Favorite holiday?
Mother's Day.
Mm-hmm. Favorite vacation spot?
The ocean at sunset.
Favorite hobby?
Favorite hobby? Playing with my grandson.
Favorite food?
Thai.
Favorite movie or TV show?
Bones or NCIS.
I like it. You're going to have to check out the Blacklist too if you like those
Oh,
too.
we like the Blacklist
okay,
too.
Yeah, just making sure.
Yeah.
What is your most unusual skill?
I am a marksman with a handgun and a rifle.
Ooh. Weirdest thing you have ever eaten?
Sea cucumber.
A musician you love?
My husband.
Aw. What's your go-to karaoke song?
My husband singing My Girl.
I don't know if that answer should count. It was a good one, but all right, we'll go with it. Anything you collect?
Jewelry. I collect gold coins, gold and silver, and jewelry and bronze statues.
What profession other than your current would you like to attempt?
Retirement.
I will take that answer. What is the best compliment someone can give you?
You made a difference in my life.
What's a cause that you are passionate about besides financial literacy?
Oh, besides financial
Besides
literacy,
that one.
I'm on the national board for Child Help, which is an organization that is committed to treating and preventing child abuse.
Great. One thing on your bucket list?
I want to visit the 7 modern wonders of the world. I have 4 down, 3 to go.
Ooh. If you could have dinner with any person alive in the world today, besides your husband, who would that be?
That would be my answer, my husband.
I know. I'm getting this. I'm figuring
My grandson. It would be my grandson.
All right.
I've been blessed. I've met an awful lot of wonderful people.
Good.
But I cherish my time with my family because I'm on the road so much.
I understand. Finally, if someone was to write a biography of your life, what would you hope the title to be?
Growing up, my father would ask me every night, Sharon, did you add value to someone's life today? And so that has been something that I've continued to ask myself every night. Have I added value to someone's life today? So I think the title I would hope would be, She Added Value.
Oh, I love that. Very good. Give her a hand, you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well done. All right, so we have time for a little bit of Q&A. I hope you guys aren't too frozen. This theater gets a little cold in here.
Feels great to me.
I know. We're good. We can turn these around. Okay, so a little bit of Q&A time. I don't think, oh, it is working. Okay, that's okay. We're recording through here, so this is just for the room. So, Wendy, would you mind doing the honors today? All right, so couple Q&As. Wendy will bring the mic to you, so go ahead and just raise your hand, stand up, introduce yourself, and we will start from there. And now you guys can't let her off the hook that easily.
There you go.
Richard Cordova. I go by Chris. So what are your strengths and weaknesses?
Great question. My strengths, we talk about passion and talents when I teach people about entrepreneurship. My strengths are my accounting knowledge, my ability to see and prevent problems for companies and identify opportunities for them. My weaknesses are very long, but I'll give you a couple. I tend to not be really good at follow-through. That's why I have a team member who is what I call my velvet hammer. Because as an entrepreneur, I see something new and flashy. It's new and shiny. I'm ready to change and go in another direction. And she pulls me back in and says, you know, where are our priorities here? And so my weakness would probably be not being the follow-through, or a little less organized than I should be. And I give away too much. I'm very generous, and I think that's a positive strength, but it can also sometimes be a weakness.
My question to you is, several business partners and I have gotten success in the past, but had some financial debt come up. We didn't take those opportunities. We have now seriously started to apply Think and Grow Rich. I mean, every single day in the last month. And we're seeing results that are phenomenal. In your dealing with intellectual property, accounting, and the real world of tangible things that you have to follow through with, how much do you consider success that we're finding that is amazing to work through difficult problems attributed to things of belief systems and using tools like Think and Grow Rich? How much, having been in the real trenches, do you account for your success?
And answer that in a minute or less. Okay, let me I'll answer the question with a question and then I'll answer it. What kinds of things did your parents say about money growing up?
That it was hard to come by and you had to be frugal.
Yep, money doesn't grow on trees, we can't afford it, what do you think, we're the Rockefellers, penny pinching. Every one of those comments is negative. And so as children, we are imprinted with a negative imprint every time the subject of money comes up. And that negativity is inside us, whether we realize it or not consciously, it's there subconsciously. And so when you end up out in the real world, you want to be successful, but you got this incredible fear about money. So mindset about money is huge. As I said earlier, we're either a slave to our money or a master of our money, and that's all mindset. Are you allowing money to control you? Are you allowing yourself to get so in debt that you'll never climb out? So mindset is very, very critical. Entrepreneurs have that desire to be in control of their lives, to be, their own boss. But if they don't also recognize that they've got to deal with that fear of money, that fear of not having enough, and then all of a sudden you're successful and you're afraid you're going to lose it. And so it can actually hinder us all of our lives. So it's hand in hand. Emotional intelligence goes and controls financial intelligence. Does that answer your question?
It does, and it's also why we are having the success we're having is we're able to just start with math.
The one thing about, I will talk about Think and Grow Rich just a moment, because part of what the process of Think and Grow Rich, which is a brilliant process, is one very strong element is perseverance. And by reading it and feeding your mind, it's called auto-suggestion. So much of us, we listen to the news as we're driving, and it's all this negative stuff. And it's just, whether you're really listening or not, it's still there, and it's chatter, and it's going into your brain. So we're allowing all this negative energy. And I'm not a woo-woo person, but I think it's very important to understand that when you can feed your mind and be a lifelong learner and add value to you in a positive way. The reason, my last book was called Think and Grow Rich for Women, and one of the reasons I wanted to write it was to get women to stop complaining. We have come so far. We need to celebrate the accomplishments that have been made and stop complaining and beating down the men because we need to achieve more. We will achieve more by celebrating what we've accomplished and acknowledging the men that have helped us along the way. Because the greatest success is when men and women work together. Now, I'm not a woman's liver, but I got really upset seeing all of them out there complaining because we draw negative energy to us. And so it's very important that when we're looking at our attitude towards life, that we look at our business and we keep reminding ourselves every day, what problem am I solving? What need am I serving? And that helps you remember the why you're doing it. And then understand that you are making a positive impact, and constantly feed your brain with personal development or positive things about your business. In my business, and for each and every one of you, I would suggest you do this. We have something called little wins. My team used to get mad at me all the time, and I said, we have all these big goals, but in order to keep the motivation and keep the energy flowing, we need little stone marks. And when we get those little wins, we're going to celebrate. We're going to feel good about it. It's going to help build us our self-confidence, and it helps us get through those days that we don't have a little win. And so it's very important to, again, and sometimes I think I see a few type A people in the audience like me. We get this great accomplishment and we go, next. We don't take time to celebrate what we've accomplished. I am guilty of that right now. In the last month, I had my adult curriculum given the #1 adult curriculum in the country, 2015, and I was voted as the #1 financial educator of the year for 2015. And nobody knows it. I haven't shared it. But, it's just like, so we all are suspect. We have to stop and celebrate and give ourselves a pat on the back and then keep moving forward. But entrepreneurs tend to put their head down and forget to say, that was a good thing. I did something good today. I had a new great customer. And so as entrepreneurs, remember to pat yourself on the back.
Very good. Thank you so much, Sharon. We really appreciate you being here tonight.
So as I continue talking to people about what you're feeding your mind, I created my podcast, Sharon Lechter, podcast.com. It's called Your Money, Your Business, Your Life. And I did it because I wanted to communicate for entrepreneurs what they can do today in the comfort of your own office, your own business. What can you do today to spur your business forward? I have my advisors in my podcast, and there's no charge, it's free. It's my gift to each and every one of you. So please visit SharonLechterPodcast.com and let me hear from you. Join me on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Sharon Lechter. Thank you so much.